Hello, angels, and welcome back to Race Report. We missed you.
So we have had a bit of a break for the holidays, and this is now our first episode of season 2, which is crazy to think that we've been doing it long enough to have a season 2. But basically this episode we're gonna run through kind of 2024 and talking about like our favorite moments of the season, biggest surprises, etc., and then diving into 2025 and what our predictions for that season look like, and also just like touching on some of the current conversations that are happening going into this new season.
I feel like we're all going to actually have similar answers for this. Categorically, like best race this past season. For me, I think biggest like stand out in terms of like wheel drive is probably going to be Brazil because what an insane environment, conditions, mess of a weekend, and like I don't know, just like overall impressive, traumatizing, but awesome.
Yeah, I agree. That's literally what I had written. I had Brazil, like, dash Max Verstappen masterclass. I feel like that just showed people who were, like, doubting him because he was dominating in the beginning of the season. And then, like, people were like, oh, he fell off. I'm like, no, the McLaren was just really, really good. That just kind of shut everyone up. Like, this is why Max is a 4-time world champion. This is why, like, he has all these accolades. It's because he put in that kind of drive in the wet, P17, to win. So, yeah, that was a stressful race to watch, but definitely one of my top races of the year to watch.
As a Max fan, I also had Brazil, so I'm just gonna follow suit with y'all and just say Brazil. Ride or die for that man now. It's the funny thing because I started out not a Max fan, and now I'm like Max Verstappen, Max Verstappen. And now I'm like he can do no wrong in my eyes. Man cannot do any wrong. So Brazil is my number one.
I feel like when we were finishing up 2023 season, we were all like, enough of Max, enough of Max. And then like 2 or 3 of the first 2024 races happened. And then Kaylee and Lauren were like, I miss when he won. Bring it back.
We miss Pookie. Bring Pookie back.
I think it was also the whole Max Lando, like, it was just them, and Kaylee and I really just sided on Max's side in the whole thing. I think also because Julia is so Team Lando, it was just like an opposite reaction of what she was, and we just went full in and then have committed ever since. Like, it was kind of like, oh, go balance. Max, and now it's like go, we love
go
Max. Yeah.
If we're going solely based off of vibes, it would have to be Monaco simply for the ending speech when Charles is coming through the grandstands he watched.
Yeah.
Build as his childhood, now rise. Like, you can't get better than that. For vibes and vibes only, besides Austin. Austin is a close second. Just because that's where
I
we
had
all got
that
to
left
be.
blank on mine. And then I was thinking about it right now, and I was like, I think like vibes alone, it would have to be Austin. Like that entire weekend for us was so much fun. And then to like dream podium lineup.
Literally.
Could not complain about it literally at all.
And it was a good race too. Like, it was good racing. Not that
Charles
we really saw any of it
off the start.
Literally, that's incredible. Like, the Ferrari double podium, to see that in person, like with us all together seeing the Ferrari double podium, like running to the podium at the end, like it was just such a the vibes were high. And I think a race that I didn't attend that was my favorite to watch. I agree with Monaco, like Charles finally breaking the curse, like that was such a good win. But also Monza, and just watching that podium of like everyone singing the Italian national anthem with Charles winning again was so good. But I guess also Lewis winning in Silverstone, that was one of my favorites. That was a great race, mixed between wet and dry, which made it super interesting. And Lewis just showing, like, again, why he's a 7-time world champion. He had such an incredible drive, and to be able to win his home race in his last season at Mercedes, to kind of like end off that historic period at his home race, was just like perfect race for me.
I would say for me it was like Austin favorite race, but then I was like, okay, but favorite win, like favorite winning moment. And that was up until now tied between like Lando in Miami, Charles in Monaco, and Lewis in Silverstone. But I think kind of like what Kaylee said, like Charles winning in Monaco kind of takes the cake out of the 3 of those.
Yeah.
And in large part, like you said, by the commentary, Alex Jack's commentary, anytime I see like a clip of it online or on TikTok, I still am like,
tear up.
Oof, my feelings. So speaking of kind of favorite wins, favorite races, favorite driver this season.
Not Charles. He pissed me off.
He was on your shit list
for like the majority
of corner Kaylee Charles. I'm over this man. Except for when he had his 3 wins and then
I was like, 3 or 4,
I don't remember time. Then she was like, I love Charles this week. Next week, I hate that man.
I know. It's a toxic relationship, guys. I'm not gonna lie. It's this one-sided toxic relationship, mostly because he has no idea who I am. So it's just me beefing with like a brick wall. I would say Max, consistently, he was my favorite. No, I take that back. I love Max. You know, I love my Max Patch, Cabbage Patch. Like, love him. But I'm gonna throw a wild card, and it won't be Lance Stroll, because I know I can see from Lauren's face that she thought it was probably gonna be Lance Stroll.
So confused.
I'm like trying to figure out who it is.
It's Franco Colapinto.
Oh, love him.
Valid.
Oh my god.
Okay. Right? Like,
love that.
No media training, funny, great driver. I'm sorry to steal yours, Lauren, because I feel like that he's also going to be yours. But like, just all around, he made up for Charles being horrible this season. And I thank him for that. I thank him for his service, because it was a hard service.
He brought the laughs, for sure.
He did. He brought the vibes.
He did. He really did. I would say, like, my favorite driver forever since, like, I've started watching F1 is going to be Lewis. But I obviously then go through, like, waves of other people. Like, Lewis is just consistently there. He never really upsets me. But Max was someone that I was not a fan of at all until this season. My brother is Max's biggest fan. And for that reason and that reason alone, I hated Max. Especially because, like, we all started watching during 2020 together, like, as a family, got super into it. And so my dad and I being Lewis fans and my brother being a Max fan, like, we war for, like, the past 4 years in our house. And so I was just, like, so anti-Max because of my brother, literally for that only reason. So this year, really grown to love Max. Also, as Kaylee said, love Franco. Really, we'll dive into the whole Alpine mess later, but hope to see him in the seat later this year. But another, like, driver, I guess, on, like, a midfield team that I had, like, no feelings towards, positive or negative, until recently is Nico Hülkenberg. I love that man. And I love K-Mag too. And, like, I'm sad he's not in F1. Like, I'm going to miss seeing him. But Nico Hülkenberg is honestly in my top 5 drivers now. Like, I love him so much. He was we know I love Haas, and so I'm sad he's left Haas. But I will now become a Kick Sauber Audi fan because of him. Love Nico.
I fear for your mental health.
I mean, I've survived this long as a Ferrari fan, so, you know, just
that's fair.
Add that. I mean, if he gets a point, I'm gonna be the happiest person ever. And then obviously Oscar. Sure. Like, I feel like this season we all really love Oscar. Like, again, he can do no wrong.
I fear that my favorite driver this season was probably fairly obvious. When I met y'all, like, I was a pretty big Charles fan. I still am. And not to jump ahead to, like, 2025 season, but, like, I'm feeling hopeful for him. I'm feeling optimistic. But I think I really, like, was a ride or die Lando fan this year. Absolutely, for sure. And then in terms of, like, a driver that I've grown to love, that's absolutely Oscar Piastri. I mean, even at some points this season was having moments where I was like, I think I might like Oscar more. Like, I think he's my new favorite. And you also fair well know that Yuki Tsunoda is, like, my bestie. He doesn't know it that we're besties, but we are.
Love Yuki so much.
Love Yuki.
Would commit crimes for him at this point. And he would have no idea, but I would do it. I would say we could get into the, like, your favorite drama moment of the 2024 season, but I fear that there's just too many to even count.
There was so much.
Maybe kind of in lieu of that, what was your biggest heartbreak of 2024?
Max going so long without a win.
Really? Of all the things that happened? Logan?
No.
Daniel?
That was a hee-hee ha-ha moment. Hee-hee ha-ha moment. Low-key, y'all, so much happened in 2024. It's like my brain blacked out and I can't remember everything that happened. Like, I forgot Daniel and Logan had left for, like,
I know. I was like, oh, wait, that was
like,
2024?
That happened?
Yeah. I would say, like, it was really sad Daniel leaving mid-season. I wish they would have let him finish the season out and like done it in a dignified way instead of like how they did it. But that's Red Bull for you. I do think that after that season, it was Daniel's time to end in F1, but the fact that he didn't get the sign off that he deserved.
He didn't get to do donuts. He didn't get to do any of that, like,
he didn't, have a final race. Stuff. Yeah. It was just like, oh, we're telling you, like, the week of, this is your last race. Sorry. So that really sucked. That pissed me off.
Yeah, just really disrespectful in the, like, grand scheme of things, especially knowing that a lot of the growth that, like, F1 has had in terms of fan base and viewership in the last 3 years is largely in part to Daniel Ricciardo and how lovable he was in Drive to Survive and how easily that kind of onboarded fans into the sport.
Mm-hmm.
So, for sure. Still miss Logan, though. That still made me sad. But I think Daniel's leaving, especially after the, like, getting dropped by McLaren, being like, oh my god, Red Bull's picking him back up, and then for them to kind of dump him too was like whiplash, emotional whiplash. Mm-hmm. Big ouch.
Sort of deja vu-ish. I think the biggest part of the Daniel leaving was that he didn't get to finish Austin. Like, they literally cut him the race before unofficial his home race. And just the fact that, like, Logan Sargent was American, but Daniel Ricciardo was American.
Who's our new American? Liam Lawson? Ooh, he's giving very America.
That. He is giving very American. For someone who is not American, he is unfortunately giving very American.
He's giving American.
Not in a bad way.
I don't like it.
But he's just replaced sort of the frat boy Logan Sargent vibe.
I think, though there were a lot of heartbreaks this season, there were also a lot of heartwarming moments. 2, like, really big standouts for me was Zhou getting Sauber their first and only points for the season. That was amazing. Also, like, him at his home race, like, with the fans, that melted my heart. And then also, like, bittersweet kind of heartwarming would be, like, Carlos's last moments at Ferrari. And just kind of, like, the love that you could see that was so visible, not only, like, between him, but the team to him.
My Shayla.
I know.
No, literally.
I'm like, why can't Ferrari have 3 drivers? Like, it really... Actually, literally, Charles, go away. I want Carlos in that seat.
The Prince
I've said this forever. I'm so over Charles. Yeah, he's not the Prince of Ferrari. He never will be.
Honestly, Carlos fits the vibe of Prince of Ferrari better.
He fits the Prince vibe better than Charles, just in general.
To all of the Charles Leclerc girlies out there, I did not agree to this. Kaylee, you were mentioning flops a lot, and I just couldn't help but think of my biggest flop for this season is Lance Stroll beaching himself in the gravel in Brazil before the race even started. It
was such
a flop. But also at this point, I'm like, is it a flop or was it on purpose?
Did he just not want to race? I think he just didn't want to race.
If it's on purpose, then it's kind of icon behavior rather than a flop. Except for that one red flag in, where was it, like Hungary or something?
Somewhere. Whatever it is, that Lance Stroll, I love. Would marry that only version of Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll during a red flag, yes. Any other Lance Stroll, no.
And he needs to not speak. Every time he opens his mouth, I'm like...
Him and Patrick Mahomes. I don't want to hear your voices ever. Like,
you are very Canadian, sir.
He's so aggressively Canadian.
Let's
like, love Canada, love Canadians, but Lance Stroll's a bit too Canadian sounding for me. I don't know what my biggest flop was. Like, just trying to think of what happened this season, I'm just like, I
mean, Papaya Rules, flop. Checo, flop. Esteban Ocon getting the boot with 1 race to go, flop.
We're not even Esteban Ocon fans.
Yeah.
Jack Doohan picking the number 7, flop.
Huge flop. Yeah. Oh, Kimi Antonelli in FP1 eating it into the barrier, big flop.
Flop.
Totaling George's car. Williams Just Williams, flop.
Flavio Brigatore coming back to Alpine, flop.
Flop.
Carlos having to go to Williams,
flop.
Flop.
Flop. It's going to be great merch, though.
Franco Colapinto not having a seat,
flop and a half.
Biggest flop.
You got the double thumbs.
Any other 2024 things that y'all feel are imperative?
The only thing was, like, I still can't believe that we had 7 race winners and McLaren won the Constructors' Championship. Because if I had done predictions
and Ferrari
at the end of...
almost won it.
I know. If I had done predictions, I would have been Max wins everything. Like, maybe there's 2 other race winners or, like, another race winner. And Red Bull wins the Constructors. End of story. Like, that I would have never guessed, and I'm not mad about it at all. But I feel like that really just sums up 2024. Like, it was wild, and, like, everything happened. So now, moving on, we've kind of wrapped up what we can remember of the 2024 season, because I feel like it was all kind of coming back to us as we were talking about it. But going into 2025, we've kind of going to do our prediction for constructor. Well, as you can tell by when I'm going to do my predictions, I'm going full Ferrari Delulu and just Delulu for Lulu. So for constructors, though, I did put McLaren to win the Constructors. I've put McLaren to win the Constructors and Ferrari to come second and Red Bull to come third. So the same as this year. I think it's going to be really close between McLaren and Ferrari, and then Red Bull is going to be there, and then, like, Merc. For the drivers, though, I put Lewis Hamilton wins his 8th title because I'm going full all in on Lewis Hamilton. But for P2, I put Lando, and then P3, Charles, P4, Max Verstappen, and P5, Oscar. So that's my roundup. I'm really manifesting this for Lewis.
I think mine's pretty similar. But for mine, I put Ferrari wins the championship with McLaren second, Red Bull third, because let's be honest, as much as I love Liam Lawson, he's going to crash out and burn from the pressure, and it's going to be Max yet again carrying the constructorship, and you can't win it on one person alone. I digress. I did put Lewis as my number 1 because I think now that he's in a dominant car, and let's be honest, as much as Charles is the Prince of Ferrari, Lewis is the number 1 driver now. So he's going to get, like, all the good upgrades, all the good stuff. And, like, I feel like they will actually listen to him when he's like, fix my car, this isn't right, instead of gaslighting him and being like, fine, your brakes might not work, but you're fine. So I do think that he will win the championship. So I have him as 1. And then Max is 2, because I do think that even with Liam Lawson dragging the team down, sorry, Liam, I do love you, but, like, let's be honest here, it should have been Yuki. He will come in second because it'll be close. And then I think Lando will be in third with, like, battling it out for second with Max, followed by Charles in 4th. And then I would love to say Carlos in 5th. I would love to say Carlos in 5th, but we have to be honest with ourselves. This is honesty hour. Let's hold hands. Let's circle up. He ain't gonna get anywhere near top 10 in a Williams. So yeah, it is Oscar.
Yeah. So basically, we have the same top 5, just different orders.
Yeah.
Interesting. I fear that mine might be out there in comparison.
I'm excited that it's different.
He says Kimi Antonelli.
Kimi Antonelli, wins it all.
No. I definitely think the 2 most dominant teams are going to be McLaren and Ferrari, just because, like, collectively driver lineup wise, like, I don't think Mercedes has 2 solid drivers. I don't think Red Bull has 2 solid drivers. I think McLaren and Ferrari do. I'm saying I'm kind of on Kaylee's train. I think Ferrari World Constructors Championship, McLaren P2 in it. I think what's going to happen is McLaren just had, like, really good odds this year, and I think we could see the other side of that coin kind of flip. Especially too if they come in a little bit too cocky. I think that'll get to them really quickly, versus you've got a 7-time world champion and then Charles, who's literally just come off the best season of his entire career. So I think it's going to be probably Ferrari, McLaren, then Red Bull, then Merc. Maybe. Honestly, that could also crash and burn really, really quickly, and I wouldn't be surprised. Drivers' Championship, I don't think it's going to be Max. I think that's my, like, definite prediction. And originally I wanted to say Lando, but and you might think that I think it might be Charles. I think Lewis is going to need time to adjust to the car. I mean, he's already been needing like modifications and whatnot, considering the setup and whatever. I think this could be, if Charles wants to win a championship while Lewis Hamilton is at Ferrari, this is the year that he needs to try to do it.
Yeah, that's true. It's either once Lewis is gone or this first advantage. Year while he's... But the problem with Charles, like, and I really would not be mad if Charles won at all because I do love Charles, but I feel like his problem is he can be so inconsistent with things. Like, he's either on or he's mid, and there's no in between. Like, he's either on absolute fire or it's just like, okay, great, you got P4, awesome. Like, because no one else was fast, like, because it was just McLaren and Ferrari racing each other.
Yeah, but you can win a championship on consistent P4s and 2 wins for the whole season. It's happened before. I think also the reason I think he has a better chance is I think this season in general is going to be so much more neck and neck, because I think we're going to see a lot more shuffling of like your top 3.
That's true.
Your top 3 in the Constructors' Championship could be separated by like 10 points each by the end of the season.
Yeah. I could also see him like thriving, or I could see him absolutely bottling under the pressure of like the pressure of a title, the pressure of Lewis being your teammate, and him just being like and getting the yips. It really could go either way.
I'm gonna go optimistic. I'm gonna say Charles P1, Lando P2, Max P3, Lewis P4, Oscar P5.
So we all are on the same page of our top 5 drivers.
I think the only change that could be is potentially swapping Lewis and Oscar's place. I think that just really depends on how well Lewis does or does not adjust to the car.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it was because Ferrari's also saying that this car is going to be basically a completely new car. So that'll be interesting.
It's 95% different, right?
It gives me absolutely no hope.
So in my case, maybe they're going to come 7th in the Constructors' Championship.
Last year it was supposed to be also really different.
Yeah.
Every car, every year, they go, guys, look at our brand new, completely different car. It's literally a paste and copy. Like, a paste and copy. I have no faith. It is going to be a microwave this year, like it was a microwave last year.
This time it has an air fryer built in, though.
Yeah.
Right.
It's got some, like,
slightly darker shade of color red.
With 17 extra HP logos.
Yeah.
Those make it faster.
Yeah, that adds an extra horsepower. It stands for horsepower. Each HP logo that they add, an extra horsepower. So it's like 5 on the outfits and like 5 on the car. So that's 10 extra horsepower for Ferrari.
I think that they should add Pringles cans to the sides of the cars for like aerodynamic tunnels where the wind just like blows through.
Pringles needs to sponsor an F1 car because you know how Duracell sponsors Williams and like it looks like a battery?
You could do the Pringles.
You could do that with a Pringles can. That would be so good.
Before we move on to the next topic, I do have a quick sidebar that we absolutely have to devote our love, time, and attention to. Fernando Alonso's back.
Guys,
for those who don't
know,
we spent a weekend together at Lauren's like cabin house right as the TikTok ban was impending. And one of the last edits that we watched as a group before the app shut down for 12 hours was an edit, like an old Fernando Alonso clip where it is like the tattoo on his back. And when I say that this is the definition of like the female gaze to a T.
But what I don't understand is why are they not using this clip for every piece of ad ever? Like why did I just now learn about this video? And why is this not on like they're very social media people at Aston Martin. Like where is this clip? Where's my t-shirt with that on it? I will buy that merch.
Imagine a modernized version of the Fernando Alonso video. He's with the Aston Martin car, and the lighting, instead of being like black and white lighting, is the Aston Martin green glow.
Send this to them immediately. I will be sending this clip to them. Like, anytime that one of their drivers messes up, they just need to post an edit compilation. They need to post the back video every time like Fernando DNFs, and then every time Lance Stroll DNFs, which will be a lot, so that'll be good for our eyes, is just a compilation of him doing a red flag.
Like, I would never get sick.
Ferrari got it right.
I would never get sick.
Yeah.
Every
so where are our thirst traps, Aston Martin?
That Ferrari would crash out, they'd be like, here's a thirst trap.
Ice bath content. So the other kind of things that I had was crazy predictions, and then who we think the biggest flop, or what team we think the biggest flop is going to be. So my crazy prediction are that Ollie Behrman outscores Esteban Ocon, which it's his first year. He's a rookie. Esteban can be, I mean, he's decent. So, but I think Ollie's going to be very good. And then my other crazy prediction is more of something I really want to happen. It's because we haven't had it happen, I think, since like Pierre won in Monza, was a midfield team winning a race. Like, it would have to take a Brazil for something like that to happen. I mean, that's how we got a double Alpine podium. But to have someone that's not the big four, like McLaren, Ferrari, Mercedes, or Red Bull, win a race, that would literally make my whole day or my whole year. And then biggest flop, I put Liam Lawson and Kimi Antonelli. I just don't think they are going to live up to, like, they have such big expectations on them. And I don't think they're going to live up to that. I think they're going to probably start out okay, because I feel like it'd be stupid of them to like hit the ground running, both of them. I feel like they're just kind of like ease their way in, whatever, score some points, maybe get some P3s, you know, but then ultimately be like, oh, I can do this, blah, 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 and then try and just outperform their teammate, which is never going to happen because it's George Russell and Max Verstappen. Like, that's just not going to happen. So I think they're going to end up flopping. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, those are actually just, I'm like, I kind of want to copy paste Lauren's.
Mine is,
but I won't.
Carlos is going to drag that cinder block of a car all the way to first. I don't know how, and I don't know where, and I don't know when, but I feel it in my heart of hearts he's going to win at least one race. Now, does that mean the rest of the grid DNF'd? Maybe. But
Meteor takes them all out besides Carlos.
I do feel it in my heart of hearts that he's going to win. That's my craziest prediction. Or the fact that Kimi Antonelli is going to outscore
George Russell.
Princess George.
That would be iconic.
Honestly, yeah. Like, I would root for him. And then my biggest flop,
he's already outscoring him in favorites.
Right. Like, he's going to flop after like the first 3 races, and then they're going to put in.
My biggest surprise, not quite going as far as Kaylee did. I'm going to say Carlos puts the Williams on the podium. Not a win, just on the podium. And then I'm going to say my other, like, just like a fun surprise prediction is going to be that one of the top 4 teams subs a reserve driver in at some point during the season. Like, whether it's for one race like they had to with like Ollie when Carlos's appendix happened, or if it's like a permanent thing where Yuki takes Liam's seat as since he is the reserve driver.
I think I'm adding a prediction, and it's very specific. Yuki will be driving for Red Bull in one of the races this season.
Yes.
Locking that
Even
in.
if they just have to like make up a reason to do it, I think they do want to see that data.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's like
comparison.
When Max has his kid, he takes that weekend off and Yuki gets in the car.
I was gonna say when Max gets a race ban for cursing,
or when Max gets
for
a race
swearing
ban
twice.
But then Yuki's probably gonna have a race ban too.
Biggest flop? I don't know. I mean, I think Jack Doohan's gonna flop. I feel bad saying it. It's hard to like make flop assumptions about teams like Sauber because they're already such a flop. Like, I feel bad for Bortoletto because I don't think he's necessarily going to get like a great standout welcome to F1. Other than that,
look who you forgot.
I don't think Kimi Antonelli's he didn't do well in any of the practice sessions this entire year, especially too compared to like Ollie Behrman. Oh, this will be it. Or like another surprise. I think Ollie Behrman will outscore Kimi Antonelli. At least 50% of the time.
I can get behind that. It'll be very interesting.
Considering how well the Haas was last season.
This past season.
I think that Ollie could easily outscore Kimi at least half of the races.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see just in general how Liam and Kimi do, because both of them were put into their like respective seats a year too early. So it'll be interesting to see how they either sink or swim, because it's giving very much like
the Logan
Alex
Sargent
Albon.
effect.
Yeah, Alex Albon, Logan Sargent.
Pierre Gasly.
Yeah, I guess we can move on to the FIA. Julia, if you want to start off on that.
Oh my god. When am I ever not hating the FIA? It's a rhetorical question. The answer is always. So, for those of y'all that live under a rock, in this house, we hate Mohammed Ben Sulayem. Hate. Capital H, hate him. He sucks. Terrible FIA president. Total hypocrite. In true FIA fashion, they have released some new regulations for the upcoming season and some new penalties for what they are just calling, very vaguely, misconduct violations. So these are, for the most part, it's the swearing. However, these fines also apply to, direct quote, making and displaying political, religious, or personal statements or comments that violate the general principle of neutrality endorsed by the FIA. In these cases, drivers are required to publicly apologize and retract their statements. So that means as well that drivers could literally get penalized to the extent of race like suspensions and like championship point loss for theoretically potentially wearing like a pride flag during Pride Month, or making any kind of statement. It's like the whole jewelry thing all over again. So more specifically, to break down the way in which these offenses work, the first offense is just a flat 40,000 euro fine. The second offense, they double that fine. It's now 80,000 euros. And then you receive a suspended 1-month suspension. Suspended meaning your 1-month suspension from the sport doesn't take effect until a certain time, theoretically like after the season or after you're done racing. If you receive a third offense, it is a 120,000 euro fine, a immediate 1-month suspension, and a deduction of an unspecified amount of championship points, which I think is kind of problematic because it means it's up to the discretion of the FIA and the stewards to decide, one, the severity of the offense, and two, what they think is a fair deduction. And as we all know, it absolutely would. Because think about how they treat Lewis versus how they treat George. Two totally
or just how they treat Max in general.
Right. Versus a British driver.
Depends a white on where British we are driver.
In the world. Yep. And then just a quick quote from the devil himself. He said, "We have to differentiate between our sport, motorsport, and rap music." He said, "We're not rappers, you know. They say the F word how many times per minute? We're not on that. That's them, and we are us." To which Lewis Hamilton did kind of accuse him of using very stereotypical language that carried a racial element. Because, I don't think it's untrue to say that MBS is racist. Right?
Praying that the drivers come together, because also like they sent a letter in like response, I guess it was probably George, and they basically were like, we don't care, like you don't have a say in this, blah blah blah, like was their response back to like the drivers association. So if they could pull a Kyalami like 82 where they just all lock themselves in a room and
refuse
to race, I feel like that's the only way that the FIA is going to listen to them. Or they just all swear. Like in the first press conference, they all come in and just like swearing. Like every third word, a swear word. They all show up wearing like shirts that are like pride or like religious or like political or like, everyone comes in on media day to that and just swearing. And they all get banned.
A combination of both. Like they do that first and then they just have a big lock-in slumber party. And also kidnap the reserve drivers.
We're due for that.
The reserve drivers don't have a choice. They can't also race.
Yeah.
And then just all huddle up and have a big sleepover in a room.
I think we're due for that. I think it's been enough time since Kyalami, and we should run it back.
I really do think that it is extremely imperative that they need Sebastian Vettel. Like, they need him because he is well respected, well revered. And I do think to some extent, especially in like modern times, the FIA is afraid of him. Right now, the FIA is like, we're not scared of you. They need someone to help represent them. And I think Sebastian Vettel would really do a good job at that. But yeah, I don't know. I hate the FIA. I know that y'all feel similarly. I think it's important to bring it up in the current climate that we are in, especially like in motorsport. Circling back, now that Red Bull is in their downfall era, and we've preyed upon this, Liam Lawson, we can all agree, should not have gotten that seat. Everyone in this house wanted Yuki in that seat. I really think Liam is going to crash out trying to keep up with Max and like proving himself, and it's going to be a repeat of like the Pierre Albon era where you're pushing so hard to try and impress that you DNF the car every single time you step foot in it.
Yeah, I definitely feel like we talked about, they put Liam in the seat too early. He needed a season, like a full season at VCARB, and to have Yuki in the seat because, again, like, you would think that Red Bull would learn from their past mistakes, but they never do, of putting young drivers in too early into their like main seat, especially when you're competing against Max Verstappen in like an environment that of Red Bull, which is not very like nurturing, helping you grow. It's just very much like feed you to the wolves immediately. And we saw how that played out with Gasly, but especially with Albon, who then ended up losing his race seat and was out of racing for an entire year because of, like, he had so much potential, but it was just like crushed by Red Bull. And so I can definitely see the same thing happening to Liam. Not that I want that to happen to Liam, but that's kind of what I see coming down the line. I hope I'm proven wrong and he does great. Like, good for him. But yeah.
It's a very kind of like sink or swim moment, sort of like how you said, Lauren, feed him to the wolves. I truly believe in my heart of hearts that he will teeter along for the most bit. I don't think he'll completely crash out, but I don't think he will do well. I think him and Yuki might switch, like, come mid-season.
Mm-hmm. That he'll just fail to impress.
And they'll say, okay, yeah, we should have kept you in VCARB. And Yuki, who has literally put in the time and effort and blood, sweat, and tears, should get his seat.
Same way, like, with Red Bull for me, or, like, the way that, like, Toto Wolff thinks that, like, Kimi Antonelli is going to be his, like, Max Verstappen. I fear that, like, Red Bull thinks Liam Lawson could be their next Max Verstappen, and sue me, but I don't see Liam fulfilling the shoes of a championship winning driver.
The issue with that is there is no Max Verstappen. He is Max Verstappen, and there will not be a replacement. Just like because I feel like the misconception with great drivers, teams are always looking for the next one. But the reason why drivers are great is because they are singular and they are their own entity, and there is not another person like them. You can't copy and paste a great driver. You have to just be a great driver.
Putting the resources into that driver and helping them get and like reach their full potential, and putting a driver in a seat too early is pushing them back so many steps that you could have been like, okay, put Kimi Antonelli in the Williams like they did for George, give him a couple of years under his belt to get used to Formula One, get used to the pressure, or just another year in F2. But instead, no, let's just throw you into one of the top teams with like a teammate that has been like is a race winner and all this stuff, and be like, okay, like perform, be great like you were in F2 and F3. And it's just not how that works. And I
also think it inflates those drivers' egos. You know, like, you know, Liam or Kimi being like, well, I got a Red Bull seat, I got a Mercedes seat, I'm hot shit. And then it literally sets them up for failure. Speaking of another rookie, Alpine, Jack Doohan.
Potential mid driver swap. Yeah, so
I think this could go so many ways.
I used to really like him, and ever since he chose the number 7, automatic shit list. I'm sorry.
Well, the word on the street is Jack Doohan was signed for 6 races, and if he performs well, he keeps his seat, and if he doesn't, he's out of there. And I fully believe that rumor, because I think that they signed him, but then when Franco Colapinto didn't get a seat,
became an option.
They're like, oh my gosh, this guy's an option for us, but we already signed Jack. What are we gonna do? And it's like, by the way, there's a clause in your thing, like you don't get the full season because if you don't do good, we want to snatch up Franco. And then as we've seen, he's been signed as the reserve driver. So kind of really just fueling that rumor even further.
Thank you for joining us on this journey back to the past and present and a little bit of the future. Stick around, join us some more, and I'm sure you'll find us again in a week or so chatting. Love you guys. Bye.